Greetings my dear friends. Welcome to Odin's Storytime. I am Odin, the Norse god of wisdom and adventure. Today I will share with you a tale called The Aesir Gods and Their Legendary Deeds, Norse Mythology stories of Odin, Thor, Loki, and the heroes of Asgard, a story from the mighty Norse legends that teaches us courage and cleverness. Let's dive into the world of gods and heroes. Long ago, before the world of men was shaped, there stood the great tree Yggdrasil, whose branches reached across the heavens and whose roots wound deep into mysterious realms. At the very heart of these worlds was Asgard, the shining home of the Aesir gods. I, Odin, sat high upon my throne, Hlidskjalf, from which I could see all that happened in the 9 realms. My ravens, Hugin and Munin, flew far and wide, bringing me news of every whisper and secret. In those golden halls, my wife Frigg, wise and gentle, wove the fates of gods and men. By my side stood mighty Thor, my son, whose laughter was as loud as thunder and whose hammer, Mjolnir, could shatter mountains and drive away the frost giants who threatened our world. There too was Loki, the trickster, whose clever tongue brought both delight and disaster, and whose mischief often led us into unexpected adventures. One morning, as the sun rose over Asgard, its light sparkling on the rainbow bridge Bifrost, Thor burst into the hall, his red beard bristling with excitement. "Father," he cried, "the giants are stirring in Jotunheim, plotting to steal the golden apples that keep us young and strong. The apples, tended by the gentle goddess Idun, were the source of our immortality. Without them, even the gods would wither." I called the gods together, and we devised a plan. Thor would lead a band of brave warriors to guard Idun's orchard. Loki, ever sly, promised to uncover the giant's scheme. As the day faded, a chill wind swept in from the north, carrying the scent of ice and danger. From my throne, I watched as Thor strode forth, Mjolnir in hand, his footsteps shaking the very earth. Loki slipped away, his eyes gleaming with secrets. In the deep shadows of the forest, the giants crept closer, their eyes glowing like embers. Thor waited, hidden among the trees, while Loki, disguised as a falcon, soared above, spying on their every move. The night grew thick with tension, and the fate of the gods hung in the balance. As the moon rose high above the silver towers of Asgard, Thor stood ready beneath the ancient oaks, his hammer Mjolnir glowing faintly in the night air. The giants, those towering beings from Jotunheim, were cunning and fierce. But Thor's strength was unmatched. Suddenly, a shadow flickered through the trees. Loki, in the form of a sleek falcon, swooped low to whisper news to Thor. "The giants plan to capture Idun herself," Loki murmured, his voice barely a breath. "Without her golden apples, the gods will grow old and weak." Thor's eyes blazed like lightning. "Then we must act swiftly," he declared. Together, they moved through the dark forest, the crunch of their footsteps muffled by the thick moss and fallen leaves. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, and the distant howl of wolves echoed like a warning. Meanwhile, in Asgard's great hall, I sat watching the threads of fate twist and turn. My one eye pierced the veil of time, and I saw the dangers that loomed not only for the gods but for Midgard, the world of men. The gods' strength was tied to the golden apples, and if the giants succeeded, chaos would spread like wildfire. Suddenly, a cry shattered the silence. Idun had been taken. The trickster giant Thiazi, disguised as an eagle, had swooped down and snatched her away to his dark fortress in the mountains. The gods' laughter faded, replaced by a heavy silence. Thor's grip tightened on Mjolnir, and Loki's face grew grave. "We must rescue her," I said, rising from my throne. "For the fate of all worlds depends on it." Thor nodded, his muscles coiling like a great storm ready to break. "I will break the mountains if I must," he vowed. Loki, ever the cunning one, smiled a sly smile. "And I will fly faster than any eagle to find her." The night was alive with the promise of adventure, the kind that tests the heart and sharpens the mind. The gods prepared for a journey that would take them beyond the safety of Asgard, into the wild lands where giants ruled and danger lurked behind every stone. Together, we set forth, the thunder of Thor's steps echoing, like the beating of a great drum, the whisper of Loki's wings stirring the cold air. The fate of gods and men hung in the balance, and only courage and cleverness would see us through. The stars above blinked down like watchful eyes, and the world held its breath for the deeds yet to come. The journey to Thyes's mountain fortress was perilous. The air grew colder, and the sky darkened as we crossed the jagged borders of Jotunheim. The ground beneath our feet was rough and cracked, and strange shadows danced among the rocks. Thor's hammer pulsed with power, lighting our way like a beacon in the gloom. Loki flew ahead, his sharp eyes searching for any sign of Idun or the giant eagle that had taken her. At last, we reached a towering peak wrapped in swirling mist. There, high on a rocky ledge, stood Thyes's fortress, carved from black stone and crowned with icy spires that glistened like frozen fire. The giant himself was a fearsome sight, massive and fierce, with eyes like burning coals and wings that stretched wide enough to blot out the sun. Thor stepped forward, his voice booming like thunder. "Release Idun, or face my wrath." Thyes laughed, a sound like cracking ice. "You gods are brave, but you are far from home. This is my realm, and no one takes what I have claimed." With a roar, Thor swung Mjolnir, and the hammer blazed with lightning as it struck the fortress walls. Stones shattered, and the mountain trembled. Loki, meanwhile, darted in and out of shadows, weaving spells of confusion and trickery to distract the giant. The battle raged fiercely, the clash of divine power shaking the very earth. But even as Thor's strength battered the fortress, it was Loki's cunning that turned the tide. Disguised as a hawk, he swooped close to Idun's cage and whispered words of encouragement. With a burst of hope, Idun grasped her golden apples and prepared to flee. Thor's hammer struck one final blow, breaking the chains that bound the cage. Idun was free. She soared into the sky, her golden apples glowing with renewed life. Thyes, furious and defeated, spread his great wings and fled into the stormy clouds. As we made our way back to Asgard, the dawn painted the sky with colors of fire and gold. The god's strength returned with Idun's apples, and laughter filled the halls once more. Yet, even in victory, I knew that the balance between order and chaos was delicate, and the adventures of gods and men were far from over. The mountain air was sharp and biting as we made our way back to Asgard, the dawn's rosy fingers stretching across the sky. Idun, the gentle goddess of youth, held her golden apples close, their warm glow restoring the strength and vitality to all the gods. Without her magic fruit, even we, the mighty Aesir, would have grown old and weary, our powers fading like the last embers of a dying fire. But the tale does not end with Idun's rescue. The giant Thyes, who had taken her, was a fierce foe, and when he returned to find his prize gone, he transformed into a great eagle and flew swiftly toward Asgard in furious pursuit. The gods, wise and prepared, built a great pyre of wood and kindling near the walls. As Loki, in the form of a falcon, raced home carrying Idun transformed into a small nut, the giant eagle thundered behind him, wings beating like storms. Just as Loki crossed the threshold of Asgard, the gods set the pyre ablaze. Thyes, unable to slow his furious flight, crashed into the flames. His feathers caught fire, and with a terrible cry, he fell to the ground. The god seized the moment and struck him down, ending the giant's threat to our realm. Yet even in victory, the shadow of consequence lingered. Thyes's daughter, the giantess Skadi, came to Asgard seeking justice for her father's death. Though fierce and proud, she was wise, and through her, the gods learned that every deed, even those of heroes, carries a price. From this tale, my dear friends, we learn that courage and strength are vital, but so too is cleverness and the wisdom to know when to seek peace. The gods' power comes not just from mighty blows or magic, but from unity and understanding. The golden apples remind us that youth and strength must be cherished and protected, and that even the gods must face trials to keep their light burning bright. I hope you enjoyed this story about the Aesir gods and their legendary deeds, Norse mythology stories of Odin, Thor, Loki, and the heroes of Asgard. The lesson we learned today is that true power lies in courage, cleverness, and the bonds we share. Remember to carry this wisdom with you, and be courageous and clever every day. Join me again soon for more tales from the Norse legends. Till I see you again, farewell, my dear friends. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell icon next to the subscribe button to receive notifications whenever a new story is posted. Don't forget to share your thoughts about this tale in the comments, it really helps us keep bringing you more wonderful stories.